It took me so long to figure it out. It gives me exceptional sadness when I see other people out there that are still holding on to the fat that they might have put on in high school, after high school and college, the freshman 40, and then those of us that really just kind of let ourselves slip away. It has become somewhat of a mission. I see people in my real estate business, they could use help. I see law enforcement that I used to work with. I see their pictures. I understand that. I understand what it's like to be wearing a super heavy vest, super heavy clothing, a Sam Brown, the boots, if you're a motor, the motor boots, all that equipment, and in addition, on top of that, carrying 40, 50, 60, or even more pounds of fat on your frame, which you don't need. One of the things that I realized, and I wish I would have realized it earlier on, is that I do have ultimate control of what goes in here. The fall apart of that is I have this that seems to be running the game most of the time. So what I had to do is become more present. It sounds something like you would find online. Well, you're finding this online. What I mean by more present is before I knee jerk into eating something, before I go out and put something into my body, I need to take a moment of calm and not rush out and just do something mindlessly. It was the autopilot that really set me into that death spiral every single time I sat down to eat. And when I sat down to eat, actually, I really wasn't sitting down much. I was kind of eating just mindlessly throughout the day. It was like I was grazing constantly, like a cow might, all the day long, chewing on something, not realizing that because of my constantly high insulin levels, I was creating problems. Well, I did this for years and years and years, all of my adult life. And then previous to that, I started that in my late 10, 11, 12, and then early teens, late teens, and so on. So it continued through. At some particular points in my life, I was able to get a little bit off, enough to get into the police academy, enough to be able to fit into kind of normal clothes in a way. But the best size my waist got, even in the police academy, was 38, 40, best size. So even in my best shape, in my 21, 22, at that moment, I had to lose at least 80 pounds at that time to get to a 40-inch waist. So you can imagine, but I was able to do it. However, I didn't change my method and my approach and my thought process as it came to food. I still was just mindlessly eating and really looking at other things in life besides how I felt. I was very capable of sabotaging myself and then overlooking my own misgivings or my own inabilities to control my own destiny, my own future. And I understand it's difficult for us to get beyond today. I know a lot of the woke world is discussing being now and present, but what you're eating now is going to impact that next moment, if you make it. Next moment being whatever that means to you. Could the next moment be the next 10 seconds? Sure. Could it be the next 10 years? Of course. One of the things that I looked at that really made a big difference in my life is I honestly looked at my life at a moment of self-reflection, and I thought, what if I was able to visit my past self? Let's say I went back to the late 80s. Let's say I went back to myself in 1987 as I was graduating high school, my future self now, and went and had a discussion with them. If it would have been my future self at 51, 52, that would have been a big shock to that 18-year-old boy. He would have seen a 365-pound man with a 65-inch waist, and incredibly out of shape, and with stuff going on in his calves that looked like blood that wasn't moving. I had that brownish reddish thing in the bottom of my calves. My feet were always swollen, looking like they were going to pop like balloons. And again, I was sucking wind whenever, just moving to and fro. I had difficulty being able to carry on a conversation because I would become so out of breath. Looking at that transition, looking at that thought process, I actually started to understand that I'm a lot more than my decisions. In fact, I'm much deeper than that. When I saw myself from the future telling that self, it made sense. And I didn't want to continue to perpetuate the problem. I went to a few doctors. They inform you that, of course, you've got a problem, you're way too fat, triglycerides are too high, insulin, your blood's high, you're type 2 diabetic, these are the medicines we're going to start putting you on. That's not a great place, because now you don't get to live. You kind of have to do these things to live. Your choices now are dependent on medicines. And if you're already there, that's fine. Most of that potentially is going to be reversible when you solve that fat equation. Again, you're going to speak to your doctor, you're going to talk to those medical professionals, as did I, but I found that actually teaching myself that food wasn't as important as I was led to believe, and I don't have to have an entire life surrounding food, surrounding parties, surrounding going out and drinking alcohol, doing these other things. I could have a lifestyle where I'm with my best person in the world, and her and I get to go do things that don't have much to do with food at all. In fact, what I've noticed is when you surround your people with like-minded people that have that same fitness goal, or at least that lifestyle, that's super healthy. When you're stuck around people that are just as fat and miserable as you are, can't find their way out of it, that's a problem. And what you'll notice is if you get out of those circles, looking back, those people are still stuck in that miserable world. And if you were to jump back into it, trust me, I don't care how strong you are, you have people that potentially say they love you around you and eating, and you're depressed because you still don't like that environment, you're probably going to play into that whole thing. You're going to continue to eat with them. And of course, everybody, when you're eating, there's a lot of happiness there. Try not to eat. When people are drinking alcohol, it makes them, in some cases, better accepting of circumstances. It kind of lowers that. It gets rid of the warning light too, which is a problem. And alcohol is a whole mess. But besides that, that's why people drink. That's why people do drugs. People eat, I think, in some ways to escape as well, because while you're feeding your face, really at that moment you're so ever present because you're chewing and swallowing and you're getting that satiating feeling from the food, you think that everything's great. Well, once you quit eating, then that regret sets in. God, I can't believe I just did that again, or I can't believe I just ended up at a drive-through at one of the local restaurants, and I hid in the parking lot out of public view and ate as much as I possibly could, which was basically normal operating procedure. Those are those things that you need to have your self-reflection about. Maybe you don't have those habits like that, but maybe you are carrying too much weight. Maybe you are in law enforcement and you're realizing now that you watched a video of yourself that maybe you shouldn't be running around in the park wearing all that stuff. Maybe your next foot pursuit could cause an issue, because trying to chase somebody when you're carrying 80 extra pounds of fat plus 40 of equipment probably isn't the best case for somebody. If they've gotten to that level, more than likely they're probably not in great shape. Now I know it's if some of these power lifters, they say, well, they need all that extra fat to hold themselves together and to be stronger. I believe that's been disproven. The other thing that I was always concerned about when I was super fat, which is really funny, I was really worried about getting small, because that fat big person was somewhat intimidating. 6'1", 365 pounds. Even though I had that massive belly, everything else was kind of bigger too. So when I put clothes on, I was able to kind of have the clothes kind of sheeting over me, if that's even something, but kind of covering the fat so it really wasn't seen. But of course, when you sit down, there it is. When you bend over, there it is. From the back, the love handles and the hips and the upper ass, well, there it all is. It's I'm conning myself into believing that if I were to start losing weight, oh my God, I'm going to burn off muscle. And then now the big thing is, and of course muscle is incredibly important. You need muscle. You want to retain as much as possible. And there are ways to do that as you're either cutting calories or fasting. I found over the years fasting seems to retain more for me in the way of muscle than cutting calories, because my and maybe your metabolism adjusts really quick to a caloric reduction. You see those big shows on TV, the people that are losing all that fat, they don't have those repeat shows because these people have gained it all back and more. They basically crash the metabolism. I found over time that fasting was my secret. That, and then when I got my hormone levels checked, I discovered that my testosterone was low. Still in the normal range as far as doctors are concerned, the bottom end of the normal range. But again, that was something that typically an 80-year-old person would expect to have those levels, and here I was in my early 50s. Once I got all these things put into check, I realized that I'm a much better person, much happier, much more relaxed, and much more energetic now. I think better, think more clearly, and I'm able to put things together because I was able to finally solve that issue. So no longer do I sabotage myself at that heightened level that I did before. It's still in there. Everything's still in there. But what I do is I'm able, because of the people I've surrounded myself with, because of that lifestyle change, I don't hang out in those circles that could potentially move me into that danger zone where I start drinking alcohol or mindlessly eating or doing those things and making those unhealthy lifestyle decisions. Now, you can finish out your life the way you want, usually. The reason why I'm saying that is because if you want to be fat, you can be. If you want to be less fat, you can be. And then if you want to work through it and enjoy that journey of health and fitness, then you can do that also. One of the things that I will tell you, if you are going to get into this, if you are going to get a handle on your fatness, and you start to apply extra physical movement, physical exercise, it is going to be difficult because it's going to be something routinely you didn't do. But now you need to make it a routine. And what I suggest to anybody that asks me how is, if you haven't been working out, start with a walk. I know it's not much, 10, 15 minutes, but do it every day. Wrap yourself around it. You'll get a little bit longer. And don't look at the walk as if it's going to be your solve-all and it's going to drop all this amazing amount of weight. You're going to use that to begin. And then you might realize that, gosh, maybe it would be easier to walk at a few pounds less. So maybe you'll start to modify what you're eating or miss a meal. Maybe instead of getting up and having breakfast, you wait to eat till lunch. Or maybe if your week time is in the evening and you can blast through the morning, early afternoon, get to the evening, maybe dinner's your time. But whenever you eat, love yourself enough not to overdo it. And I know you know what that means. Eating 2 large pizzas or 14 tacos from Jack in the Box or 2 extra large French fries, seasoned curly fries of course, and 2 extra large milkshakes, Oreo of course, with whipped cream from Jack in the Box, probably is too much. Probably. Think about what you're putting in your mouth, and also understand this. It's okay to be hungry. It's okay to eat less than you normally do. It is okay. And over time you will see you might actually fix this fat issue that you've had. I'm Connor McIver. This is a longer than normal explanation. I hope it helps. But that's one of the things that I did. Get those people around you that support you, that have that same interest as you do. Get the same people, the like-minded ones that aren't going to sabotage you. They don't feed you, they don't enable you, and they support the decisions you make. The worst place to be, and it's difficult, to be around those people you've been with for many, many years, doing the same thing that you've done, you are in a rut and you have established habits that are going to be difficult to get out of. If you have a certain method that you've had for 20, 30, 40 years, stepping away from that isn't going to be easy, but it can be done. You just have to do some reprogramming of yourself. I'm Connor with Honor. We'll talk to you soon. Be well.